ӓαυται μεν ton παῖδα έτρεφον τοῖς Amaltheas γάλακτι. Hoi de Kouretes ένοπλοι εν το ἄντρῳ το βρέφος φυλάσσοντες τοῖς δόρασι τας ἀσπίδας συνέκρουον. Hina me tes tu παιδός φωνῆς ο Kronos ἀκούσαι. Rhea de λίθον σπαργανώσασα δέδωκε Kronos καταπιεῖν. Hos ton gegεννημένον παῖδα. All right. And so they, and really it's these, αὕται, and it's feminine, and so we know it's talking about the nymphais, the nymphi. And so they nourished or reared, maybe, nourished the child with the milk of Amalthea. So this is to gάλακτι, with the milk. We'll talk about all this in a minute. Of Amalthea, or with Amalthea's milk. And the Kouretes, the Kouretes, armed, guarded, or while they were actually, and the Kouretes, while they were armed, let's say it like that. Let's say maybe while guarding the newborn baby, that's βρέφος, would bang their shields with their spears, really the shafts of the spears, but we won't worry so much about that right now. So that Hina, and really I think you could say lest, but we will we won't employ that word right now. Hina may, so that, well, let's just say it like this. Hina ho Kronos, so that Kronos may ἀκούσαι, so that Kronos wouldn't hear. And then you can kind of imagine τοῖς φωνῆς, usually hearing takes the genitive, would not hear the sound of the child. We might even say the child's sound. And we could even fill that out like the crying of the child or something. We'll leave it here. It's a little, that's pretty literal. Then, that's how I'm going to understand de. Then Rhea, having like wrapped up a stone, gave it to Kronos to gulp down, and I'm just saying to swallow, but to gulp down, that's what we said before, as if it were his begotten child. That's a little wooden there, but his, that's the begotten here, his produced child, his child that was just born, we might say it something like that. But okay, now there are a lot of interesting things to talk about here. One is just this, we get another men de here. These, what these two parties are doing. Here they reared or nourished. And before, I was talking about how we might expect hippo to be used to sort of show the instrument, by which means, let me put it like that, by which means something was done. That is, I think, employed more for like animate agents. So here, this is an inanimate agent, and I don't think would expect to see hypo. Another thing, now this is a little more in the weeds, but if you were to look this up in some kind of Greek grammar, they would probably say this is like the dative of means. You could just kind of understand this as the instrumental case, and not many Greek grammars are going to describe it like that. I think I mentioned in a different, in the δίδωκε, about a certain, was it Summers? His New Testament book that does kind of describe Greek this way. It's not of huge import, but if you think about some of the older Proto-Indo-European cases, in addition to what we have here in Greek, in addition to the nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative, and vocative, there's the ablative, which we find in Latin, and then in Sanskrit and Pali, we also find the instrumental and locative. So sometimes it can just help us think through like what has to be going on. And I'm going to leave it there. I probably talked too much about that, but this is showing the means. And of course here, this is genitive. And then the Kouretes or the Kouretes, I'm not really sure how to say that in English. Now, something here, if we had this word hoi in front of ένοπλοι, it would mean the armed Kouretes. And so just want to point out that this isn't exactly the same. If you just had this by itself, this would mean, the Kouretes are armed. Here, I think it's an apposition, meaning, here's our subject, and this is really the verb over here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we get this circumstantial participle, and this is going with that. So these people, the Kouretes, were guarding, while they were guarding the child, to βρέφος, in the cave, while they were armed, or as armed, or just armed. They used to. Now, this is a good example of where the imperfect doesn't just describe an event that happened once. This is like an ongoing thing. So they used to, or they would do this, like over and over, because, and we kind of know why here. They're trying to cover up the sound of the child. So to do that, they would bang their shields with the wood shaft of the spear, with their spear. So this is dative plural. Again, no hypo. This is really just the instrumental case. Accusative here, plural. And then this purpose clause, so that not. So that Kronos, and then it's taking this, the subjunctive, so that Kronos wouldn't hear. And this is interesting. Hearing usually, I think always, I hate to say always, this verb, akouo, takes the genitive case. Now, sometimes it's explained as taking the genitive because, like, you might hear, they would say you're hearing, and this, like, it may be in the accusative case, tain phonein would be unexpressed, the voice. But here we see that that's not true. Here, this is clearly in the genitive as well. So just want to point out, I hope I didn't muddle that too much, that this verb is definitely taking the genitive case. And I don't know, it's possible in other situations that it would say, take tain phonein. So I leave that to the side for now. Something for you, dear listener, to explore. The child sound, or even his child's sound. And like I was saying, if you wanted to make this a little, I don't know, this would be a level of interpretation, but his child's, like crying or, whatever. It wouldn't have to only be that sound, but something like that. This is a layer. We're adding some interpretation here. How warranted that is, again, dear listener, I leave that to you. Then, Rhea. And remember, you might think, hey, why are you putting that H in there? The H usually gets inserted because this is a rough breathing, but the rough breathing doesn't happen before. They don't tend to write HR, but RH in transcriptions. Then Rhea, and this is an aorist participle, and it's also a contract verb. So if you look it up, it would be sparganoo, and that O gets lengthened here. So having wrapped up a stone, in other words, to look like a newborn babe, gave it to Kronos to swallow, to gulp down. Now this is kind of interesting, and I'm just going to leave it as give, but notice that this is actually the perfect. So it's not aorist, it's not present. We came across the present tense a little while back. I'm not sure if I can find it. Didosine. Now this was a present, like a historical present. She gives to him. So with perfects, typically a perfect verb is explained as something that was done in the past that has a present ramification or a continuing relevance. I don't want to over translate this, so I'm just going to say she gave it to Kronos. And I don't know why exactly Apollodorus chose this verb. Maybe he liked the sound. We do have to remember that even though we're reading this, language is a spoken phenomenon, and it's possible that the way the word sounded right to Apollodorus, or that he just wanted a little variation, or it could be deeper than that, and I welcome your opinions on that, dear listener. And then, here the Kronos is in the dative, so that's the case we expect for the indirect object. Gave it to him. And then this is, to swallow. Gave it to him to do this thing. And then here, you could even say, you could, I think, understand this even a little earlier. Then Rhea, having wrapped up a stone, as if it were, the newly begotten child, expanding that a little, gave it to Kronos to swallow down. I think that would work well too. Now I want to glance over here and make sure I wrote down a lot of notes for this one. And just to make sure that I kind of covered everything here. And I think it's kind of amazing that I might have kind of covered everything, except to say, yeah, I did miss one thing, gάλακτι. So it may be pretty obvious that this word is connected to galaxy. If you look up and see the Milky Way, and that's why it gets its name, it kind of looks like this milky, maybe residue on the sky. And I think that there might even be some myth with Heracles, and while he was being nursed, causing that. And I welcome what you have to say, dear listener.